After gaining independence in 1821, Mexico faced many challenges. The new nation struggled with political instability. Leaders changed frequently, often through military coups. This turmoil left the country vulnerable and divided. Without strong governance, it was hard for Mexico to develop a stable economy. Financially, Mexico was in deep trouble. Wars had depleted the nation's coffers. As a result, the country borrowed heavily from foreign lenders. Debts accumulated quickly, making it hard for the Mexican government to manage its finances. This financial chaos was a breeding ground for external intervention. Internal conflict was a constant in Mexican politics. The country was split between conservatives, who favored strong central authority and close ties with Europe, and liberals, who wanted federalism and reform. The frequent power struggles between these factions further weakened the nation. All these factors combined to create a perfect storm. Mexico was not only financially bankrupt, but also politically unstable. These conditions set the stage for foreign powers to intervene. They saw an opportunity to take advantage of Mexico's weakened state. In 1861, President Benito Juárez made a bold decision. He announced that Mexico would suspend payments on its foreign debts for 2 years. This decision was not made lightly. Mexico simply couldn't afford to pay its creditors. The country's financial reserves were exhausted. Juárez believed that this suspension would give Mexico some breathing room. He hoped to stabilize the economy and eventually resume payments. However, this decision alarmed foreign creditors. Among them were France, Britain, and Spain, who had significant financial interests in Mexico. The suspension was seen as a breach of trust. It prompted a swift response from these European countries. They decided to take action to ensure the protection of their investments. In late 1861, they sent a joint military expedition to Mexico. Initially, their goal was to negotiate and secure debt payments. However, France had other ambitions. Napoleon III saw this as an opportunity to expand his influence in the Americas. Thus, the stage was set for a more aggressive French intervention. Napoleon III had grand ambitions. He wanted to extend French influence beyond Europe. The Americas seemed like a promising new frontier. Mexico, with its strategic location and resources, was an attractive target. Napoleon saw an opportunity to establish a French empire in the New World. The internal politics of Mexico played into Napoleon's hands. The country was deeply divided. The conservative faction saw foreign intervention as a chance to regain power. They supported the idea of a monarchy, something Napoleon was more than willing to provide. Napoleon capitalized on this division. He presented himself as a savior who could bring stability to Mexico. By installing a European monarch, he believed he could gain a foothold in the Americas. The conservative faction in Mexico welcomed this move. Napoleon's ambitions were not just about power. He wanted to counterbalance the influence of the United States. The U.S. was emerging from its civil war and growing in power. Establishing a French empire in Mexico was a strategic move to challenge U.S. dominance in the region. The French invasion began in earnest in 1862. The initial attack was met with resistance. On May 5, 1862, Mexican forces scored a significant victory at the Battle of Puebla. This victory, however, was short-lived. The French regrouped and eventually captured Mexico City. Napoleon III installed Archduke Maximilian of Austria as Emperor of Mexico. The Second Mexican Empire was born. However, Maximilian's rule was fraught with challenges. He was unpopular and faced constant resistance from Mexican Republicans led by Juárez. Meanwhile, the United States watched closely. After the Civil War ended in 1865, the U.S. was in a position to enforce the Monroe Doctrine. They demanded that France withdraw its forces from Mexico. Faced with increasing pressure and rising costs, Napoleon III reluctantly agreed. By 1867, the French forces had withdrawn. Maximilian was captured and executed. The Second Mexican Empire collapsed. The French invasion had failed. Mexico remained a republic under Juárez's leadership. The intervention left a legacy of bitterness and resistance to foreign control.